and I hear the first officer call out. And then the first officer jumps on the radio and he screams, "Holy shit, it's the goat man." And I mean, it's just like everything went quiet. And I could hear the ringing in my ears, and I could feel my heart race. And so I hit my light and I went flying up there.
I've been told by some older people, elders, that you grab them and you hold them and you don't own them, but you hold them there until daylight. If you can hold them or pull them into the light, it destroys anything they have, any kind of power or anything they were trying to do to you. It'll destroy them.
This guy was like bouncing, like, you know, like how you see people kind of getting ready to jig, you know how they kind of bounce? Yeah, he was like that way. He was just kind of bouncing, and he was just kind of going back and forth on one foot to the other. And he just kind of turned sideways, and he turned back over to the other way, and he took off. Holy shit, he jumped in Wanda.
Welcome back to Lodge Tales, everyone. I'm your host, Rod Williamson. Before we begin the show, I'd like to give a quick shout out to a guy named Scuzzgall. He sent me a message on Spotify, and he asked if I could maybe do an episode where I tell just my own stories. And you know, I've been thinking about doing that. So maybe one of these next episodes that come up, I'll go ahead and tell not all of my own, there's quite a few there. But I'll think about it, and I'm thinking maybe I'll start in chronological order and just kind of go from there. But just so you know, Scuzzgall, I got your message from Spotify, and yeah, I'm seriously considering what you want, you know, what you're suggesting I do. Sounds fun. And so, our next guest, his name is Moses Jordan. He's from Alaska. He tells stories, he tells 3 of his personal experiences. One of them's with a shadow person, and another one's where he hears a bunch of banging in his house. There's another one he talks about where there was a ghost camp that they kind of encountered while they were out hunting. He tells more stories about little people. We both kind of talk about little people a little in depth, no pun intended. He also tells a short story about some music that was playing in a house that, you know, there's no radio or nothing on in there. It's one of his wife's stories. We reminisce a bit about, you know, just things. It's kind of odd because I know some of this. I know a guy that he knows, so we kind of reminisce a little bit about that. He tells another story about a ghost boat. Another one where one of his friends was kicking a human skull from one of those above ground graves that they used to have way back when. We talk about some alcohol, spirits, and stuff like that, and also he tells a quick little story about possession. And he is our first Alaskan guest, Moses, and I really appreciate him coming on. Well, I'd like to ask everybody once again to send your stories in to lodgetales@gmail.com, and let's hear your stories. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting ones out there, and if you've ever been on the fence about telling your stories, just give it a shot. I'd encourage you to contact me via email, or you could join our Lodge Tales Facebook group. It's just called Lodge Tales on Facebook. You'll be able to find it. You can contact me through that if you wish. It's a private group. What I want to hear is just all of us indigenous people. Don't matter where you're from. You know, you could be from New Zealand. You could be from South America somewhere. It doesn't matter. Mexico, Canada. It doesn't matter where you're at. What I'm after is indigenous tales. You know, hence the name Lodge Tales of my podcast here that we got going. And again, thanks to everybody for coming on the show and sharing your stories. being willing to, come and do this. Because for us natives, we're really kind of a guarded people. We don't tell a lot of our stories to very many people. So I understand the hesitation. Believe me, I do. And I was very hesitant at first too to start this podcast even, and to just get out there and share and kind of, because really you open yourself up to a lot of things. In my experience, it's been a lot of positive things. I've met a lot of good people that I've actually made friends with, and from all over the world. So I just hope that more people kind of bridge that barrier of, getting over your own fears, whatever it is, whatever's holding you back. I would encourage you to just come on and share, because, we're just a group of people that listen to this podcast that love ghost stories or love hearing strange things, and for the non-natives, it's good for them to hear how we kind of interact, how we think. I mean, there's a lot in this podcast that I personally like, and I can imagine there's something for every person that listens to it. And I love doing this stuff. It's really fun, and to learn about the different cultures and the different ways of people and how we're so similar. It's really interesting to me. And so that's about all I have to say about, encouraging people to come on, but I can't say it enough. Please come on, share your stories, getting closer to Halloween. So if you got a burning desire, by all means, share it with us. Well, let's get into the show. Today we have our first Alaskan guest, Alaskan native. His name is Moses, and if you will, Moses, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, introduce yourself, and go ahead and walk us into your story.
Hey guys, my name is Moses. I was born and raised in Bethal, Alaska. I lived here in Alaska all my life. And yeah, I saw an opportunity on Yukon Custom Ghost Stories to share my story. So I called Rod and decided to tell him my story, my experiences I experienced growing up. See, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna lay it on you, okay?
All right.
So anyway, growing up as a kid, I was adopted to my grandparents. My mom had adopted me to her mom and dad. They wanted to have a kid, and they were too old to have kids. So my mom said that since I was the fifth one, that she'd be able to give the fifth one away. And I was adopted to my grandparents, and my grandfather, he was a preacher at the time. He was a big alcoholic, I guess, supposedly in the 80s, and finally sobered up late 80s and early 90s, and went to Bible college and became a Pentecostal, native Pentecostal preacher.
Ooh.
So, I had questions of what if I was ever bothered by something like the devil? Asked my dad. He said, "Say I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. I repeat in Jesus' name. Should leave you alone. Should go away." I'm like, okay. So that was early on in their life. I was probably maybe 9, 10 when I asked him that.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So anyway, I'm probably 11 when this happened.
Mm-hmm.
It was fall. It was a winter time here it was in Anchorage. Went for the the native musical. It's a big festival where all the natives come and they do nothing but gospel songs.
Oh yeah.
So went to one of those, and on our way there, my dad was driving without his license, and we got T-boned. He decided to drive a red light. And we're coming from a little town that has no roads, no ways in other than going in by jet. And he decided to borrow my auntie's minivan. And on our way there, we got T-boned, and we ended up getting in a big accident. And
just that big accident happened later on that summer. I'm like 11 years old. My dad's like, "Hey Moses, I'm gonna have to go to jail." I'm like, "Why?" He goes, "Remember that car accident we got in the wintertime?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I'm gonna have to go to jail for that." And back in my head, I'm naive. I'm young. I'm like, "Okay, that's a long time. That's like 6 months ago. That happened like 6 months ago. All right." Okay, and he tells my mom the same story. 2 weeks later, in the newspaper, it said Noah Jordan, second-degree sexual assault.
Whoa.
And my whole life just flipped upside down as a kid,
Yeah.
Went from having everything, had a very stable household, to having a mom that was like waiting for her. My mom didn't even know. She was waiting for her husband to come back. And when we read that in the newspaper, we were right there, man. My mom, like, just changed. She turned into a big alcoholic, right?
Oh,
so she
boy.
started drinking almost every day, every other day.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, we went from having no alcohol in our home, nothing, like, we had nothing, Never, my dad never drank, mom never drank. See, my parents were recovering alcoholics from the 80s, and this is late 90s, early 2000s when this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And after she saw what her husband did, she became a big alcoholic, drinking every day. So my dad's in jail for like 3 weeks now from that time, and different people are coming in the house left and right, drinking with my mom. Most of the alcoholics in Bethel are like coming from the villages, coming to drink, and don't have a place to stay, so they're staying at my mom. People that I never even met before. A lot of them were family members, though, like extended family members that drank, but we never welcomed them in when they were drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But when my dad was gone, we were welcoming them in, letting them come in, even though they were drinking with my mom. This one day, my mom's been going on a bender. It was like 3-4 days straight drinking. And I come home, I'm in 6th grade, I'm like 12 years old. And I said to my mom, I was like, "Mom, man, you promised me that you weren't going to drink tomorrow. You said you're going to stay sober today. Why don't you go to bed?" And I brought her upstairs to the bedroom to go to bed. I ate whatever, and I don't recall most of the day. I had my real mother was there. That's the other thing. My real mother had divorced my real father at the time, but I considered her my sister. That's how I was raised,
Oh, yeah.
So she was my sister, and she's like in her 30s at the time, I believe, and I was 12. And anyway, I said go to bed, and she didn't drink alcohol. My real mom, because she used to tell me she was she's like, "I shouldn't have gave you up. Didn't know I was going to give you up and this is going to happen to you," type of thing. She used to talk to me like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, that night after I came home from her drinking, I was upstairs, and after she went to bed, and this is wintertime. It was around February because I had just turned 12. Because it happened that summer when, my dad went to jail. I was 11. Well, it must have been like more than like 3 months then, not 3 weeks.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And it was because I remember I was 12. I came home, it was wintertime. Came off the bus, came home. My mom was intoxicated. I said, "Mom, go upstairs and go to bed. This is, you told me you're going to quit drinking." And I went upstairs, brought her to bed. Went downstairs. I don't know what happened during that day, but I remember the nighttime I was laying in my room. Now, I'm in these ABC apartments, right? It's almost like Section 8 housing, where it's dependent on your it's based on your income, right?
Yeah.
It's apartments.
Uh-huh.
So, and it's run by like a native association. So in these apartments, there's this long hallway from the bathroom, And at the end of the long hallway is my bedroom, right?
Yeah.
So I'm laying in bed, and I had turned off all the lights. My real mom's downstairs sleeping on the couch, and the light turns on. You know, from downstairs to upstairs, the hallway light from the stair light.
Yeah.
And outside of my bedroom, the layout, anyway, I'll give you the picture layout. The layout outside of my bedroom is a closet, and in that closet is all our towels for when we shower, because the bathroom is right down the hallway.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a light above where the closet is at. Anyway, the light turns on, and I thought it was my mom, so I turned over and I looked, and I said, "Mom." You know, I thought it was my mom getting up to use the restroom or something after being passed out or whatnot.
Yeah.
He was like, "Mom." Nobody said nothing, so it scared me. And I covered up with the blanket. And when I looked back again, this time there was the darkest shadow. You know, you always hear the hat man and the shadow man. This thing didn't have a hat like they say. Oh, it had like a pilgrim hat or a fedora or whatnot.
Yeah.
This thing didn't have none of that. It was super black. It was so dark that the light above it, it was being like encapsulated by the darkness, being sucked in, you know?
Wow.
And it was in the shape of a person. And he was leaning in my doorframe. I say he because his presence, the way he asserted himself, when I looked at him, he felt dominant, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's in my doorway, and I'm leaning. He's leaning, and I'm peeking. And what came to my head was my dad when he told me that the devil ever waters you. He said, "I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. I rebuke you in Jesus' name." And I said that, and it disappeared. You know, I covered up, and I said, "I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. I rebuke you in Jesus' name." And I looked, it was gone, but the light stayed on.
Oh.
So I don't know how the hell I fell asleep, because I know my mom was passed out drunk in the other room. I knew she didn't wake up, so I covered myself up with a blanket. The next day I went downstairs and I told her as soon as I woke up, because it was the weekend, it was Saturday morning, and I came down there and I said, "Hey, last night the lights turned on. I thought it was Mom, and there was a darkest shadow, and I prayed and it disappeared." And my sister, my real mom, said there was growling in front of my face last night, and I prayed, "Our Father who art in heaven," and it stopped. She said it was cold breath growling in her face. And later that day, my dad called from jail, and I told him about it. He goes, "Has your mom been drinking?" I said, "Yes, she's been drinking repeatedly." He goes, "Has different people been stopping by the house to drink?" And I said, "Yes." He goes, "That's what's happening, is multiple people are stopping by and they're leaving their bad spirits behind. Their negative energy staying in the house now." Because my mom was depressed. I'm pretty much crying for my dad, you know, so it's a lot of dark energy in there. Different people are coming and bringing their dark emotions from, you know, bottled up by alcohol, and yeah.
Mm.
So that's what I experienced, was darkness, man.
You know,
and I seen him, you know, it's just crazy. I'm 35 now, and yeah. So like now, I gotta censor that when I go in someone's house, and sometimes I could feel this dark energy. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. You could tell it too.
Yep.
When you go in someone's home, you can feel if it's dark or not.
Yeah, you know there's something there. You can feel it. It's not this feeling of, oh, I'm scaring myself. You know, when you think about, you've just watched a spooky movie and you're walking to the bathroom and you kind of got the ABG. It ain't that kind of fear. It's something you feel in your body. You know, you feel it in your...
Yeah, and it's heavy and it's dirty, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's how it feels for me. Yeah.
But what I was going to say about that was, you know, those shadow people. They're darker than dark. That they almost look solid because you can't see through them. If there was a light on the other side of them, you wouldn't be able to see it. It's just this black figure.
It's like if it's a black hole in the shape of a person, you know?
Yeah, it'll even suck in light, you know. It'll just...
Yeah, that's what I noticed was the light did not reflect off of it at all, you know. It didn't break the light. It held the lightness around it.
Those things, they're attracted to different sufferings. Usually it's drugs, it's alcohol, it's depression. They're attracted to these things, and more often than not, those things will have a hat on. You know, the one that came to my dad's house and was bothering me one night, it came in there and 3 times it paralyzed me in one night. There was a lot of drinking in that house. There was drugs in that house. The same thing that you're talking about, people coming and going. But this is later on in life. I was about 25, 26. And I had just got out of the military, and I was staying with my dad before I, you know, found my own place and whatever. But, yeah, that thing was in my room. And my girlfriend and I were laying there, and I didn't want to scare her, but it come in, and it was a short one, though. It wasn't a big one. I remember people, they talk about those things being pretty tall. This one was small. It was short. It was only about 4 feet tall. And but anyways, it was doing that to me too. The last time, first 2 times it was solid. I could see it, and I could see its features, its hat, its clothes it had on. I could see it all. Its eyes, its big eyes. It never had like wrinkles or nothing. It was like smooth like clay, but it had this ugly smile, you know. And first it was in the corner by the door, and I was able to break free of that, and I started looking for him, and he was gone, and I was trying to go back to sleep again.
Man.
And next time when I woke up, he was halfway to my bed from that door, and he had 2 little kids standing in front of him.
Creepy, man.
Yeah, he had 2 little kids standing in front of him, and they were both looking at. They had the same big eyes, the same ugly smile. I could see their clothes, you know. And anyways, I finally was able to break out that. I was telling my wife, you know, if I start mumbling or making noise, because that's all I could do is just lay there, and I could move my eyes, but I couldn't talk. I couldn't even move. You know, I'd mumble.
Paralysis is type ones, huh?
Yeah, that's what happened to me. But that 3rd time it did that to me, I didn't see it in that room. I was wondering where the hell it was, and so I just said, all right, well, I can't move. I might as well just lay here and, I don't know, wait, I guess. And so I looked up in the ceiling, and there it was. It was on the ceiling looking down at me. I could see it. It stood out in all the shadows. It was just looking at me. It was darker than dark. It was like black, like I could probably touch it.
You know what I always ask myself, you know, now that I'm older, is like, man, what would have happened if I had communicated with it, you know?
No, they're only there to feed off of your suffering. They mean you harm. They won't do anything good to you. They're not a good spirit. It would have probably just bothered you and bothered you and bothered you, you know.
When I was a preteen, I lost faith, you know, because my dad, I was like, man, God, you're not real. You know, I was saying you're saying all these blasphemous things. I was like, you're not real. There's no way there's a God. If a man of God could go and sexually assault another woman and not even sleep with his wife and be that way, I can't. I was telling myself, like, God's not real. It's all a big scheme. Mm-hmm. And that night when that thing appeared, there was power in Jesus' name, man. I'm not a full-blown Christian or anything. I believe there's a God in darkness and stuff. But I'm telling you, man, when I said Jesus' name and all that, it disappeared. It went away.
Yeah.
And I never got bothered by a dark shadow like that after that, man.
You know, I've heard that working. People invoke the name of Jesus, and it'll chase them off. You know, I've heard that working. That's not unheard of, and there is power in that, like you say. I agree with you. You know, like with us, where we're from in Montana here, we're predominantly Catholic, but there's Christians around too. So, but most, like me, I follow our old traditional ways, sweat lodge, you know, stuff like that. That way.
Yeah, that's nice. That's what I like too. You know, getting back to tradition. Mm-hmm. You know, though, it's been stripped away from us and everything. I'm glad that I'm seeing the land back movement and all that happen with different tribes trying to restore the language and all that. I'm glad I'm starting to see that, because in Alaska, all these schools that came up here and assimilated, when the schools happened and took our people away and assimilated everybody, a lot of our languages were lost. And then now, when I go over to Anchorage, which is the big city in Alaska, I could see nothing but that age generation of those people that were taken from their families and brought to the schools, alcoholics now, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're all trying to heal. They're trying to heal, but they don't know how to heal because they weren't raised with their families, and they're self-medicating when there's traditional ways to heal.
Yeah. We see that back in our place too, you know, because what happened with us was, so it'd be like I'm 46, my grandpa, they were all taken and put in boarding schools, and then their kids, they didn't necessarily want to teach them a lot of old stuff because, you know, they were afraid they were going to get in trouble too, because if they would speak the language, they'd get beat up by those priests and nuns and stuff, you know. It was pretty bad.
My father, my grandpa, the one I was adopted to, told me the same thing. When he'd speak Yupik, they'd have his hands open. They'd say, stick out your hand, and they'd take a ruler and slap the shit out of his hands, you know?
Yeah, right on the back of him. That's what my grandpa said too. He'd hold his hands out and they'd slap the back of his hands with that ruler. Same thing. Yeah.
Yep. So yeah, my dad was raised in a children's home because it was during the TB pandemic, and his mom passed away. Gave birth to him in a boat, and she died, and they named him Noah. So I still have all these feelings of, you know, even though what he did was wrong, and I still love him. He was my dad. Yeah, unconditional. But yeah, man, that was the one crazy thing I ever experienced. And then, like, after that happened, it's like later on in life, I noticed all these other different things happening too.
Yeah, lead us into your next story.
You want to hear the next one?
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, this is like years gone by. We're still living in the same apartment, right? You know, because that's all my mom could afford at the time. And we're back on rent too, so we're gonna get evicted here soon. I was 19 years old, and I was still living at home with my mom because I was the only one working and helping pay for everything. But I was 19, and I got a call from the Anchorage Police Department, said they found my dad deceased. Apparently, he had ended up having he had colon cancer. They told him about it. He knew about it, but he chose to just let it eat him away and die, you know? Living homeless on the streets.
Yeah.
It's crazy because he was, you know, it's fine. He was a pastor, a preacher. He led a lot of people to sobriety, and which is crazy. At the last moments of his life, he was just back into his drunkenness, you know? And he just wanted to be done with life. I guess he was 72 when he passed away. But, yeah, anyway, we got evicted from ABCP, those apartments I'm telling you about. We got evicted from them. We moved to this trailer, it's number 27, trailer court in Bethel. There was a blue trailer right next to my friend that I grew up with, and he lived in the trailer park. And I never grew up in a trailer park, and, you know, I knew where he lived, and I never knew about instances of funny stuff happening over there. His mom and dad told me some funny things that happened to him when he was a baby, and how he was, like, on the bed, and all of a sudden he's underneath the bed. They had to pull him out from underneath the bed when he was, like, 3 months old. But anyway, we moved in next door, and this guy had committed suicide across the street from our trailer. And no one lived in that trailer, you know?
Yeah.
It was pitch black, always dark. And I had this pit bull, a really beautiful pit bull. He was a blue-nosed pit bull, and his fur was blue, had a big white chest, and I brought him outside, and had to go to potty. I said, let's go use the bathroom, let's go for a walk. Went and smoked a cig. While I'm walking him, he looks at that house where that guy committed suicide. He's growling. And there's a shadow of a person standing in the what's it called, the porch, the Arctic entry. So we could see someone standing in there, and he's just growling. It's just pitch black, but it couldn't have been nobody because no step. You know, the steps were all snowed up and everything. So it was something dark over at that house. And my wife, she's my girlfriend then. This was 2008. Right before 2009, it was like literally 2 days before the New Year's of 2009. my wife and her family went down to Vegas. She asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, no, I can't afford that, so I'll stay up here. You go with your family, go enjoy yourself. And that's the time when that guy drove his motorcycle. It was a big thing. In Vegas, he drove his motorcycle onto that one pier. He jumped the motorcycle all the way to the top of a building.
Oh.
It's a big thing, yeah. So she was down there, and it was like 2 days before New Year's. Anyway, this trailer that we moved to it's just a regular trailer, It's a single wide. It's not a double wide, single wide trailer.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bathroom at one end of the trailer, and there's a washer and dryer right next to the bathroom.
Yeah.
And then right from that washer and that area right there, there's a big master bedroom at the end of the trailer, right?
Yep.
So my mom's all like, "Hey, Moses, I know you're older, you're paying for a lot of stuff. You can have the master bedroom." I'm like, "You sure?" She's like, "Yeah." She's like, "Your other brother could take the smaller bedroom in front, I'll just sleep out here on the couch." I'm like, "Okay." And my mom's sister's here at the time, and her older sister, she had broke her hip. So she's staying out in the living room on a big bed, and she had passed away like 2 weeks prior to this happening, somewhere under her passing away.
Oh boy.
But again, negative energy. Family showed up drunk earlier that day, caused a big scene, big argument. They left, and I was at the end of the trailer, and I was laying on my bed. My mom's in the kitchen, and it's just me and my mom home.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably like 11:30, almost midnight. And all of a sudden, there's a big slam on my window, right? Wham! And I stood up, and I went into the doorway, right next to the bathroom and the washer and dryer. So I'm standing in the doorway now, because it freaked me out. I'm like, what the heck was that? My mom's like, "Moses, are you okay? What was that? I heard that noise." I said, "I'm good." "What was that?" I said, "Oh no." I said, "Something slammed and hit my window." She's like, "Okay." And then all of a sudden, wham, on this side of the trailer, right where the washer and dryer was with the bathroom.
Yeah.
And there's a back door on the opposite side of that, and it slammed on that side too, and I took off running down the hallway. As I freaking ran down the hallway, it went wham, 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 wham on both sides of the trailer simultaneously until I got to the kitchen. Yeah, it was crazy. And I got to the kitchen, and as I'm there, I started praying. I'm freaking out. I'm like, "Mom, what's going on?" She's like, "I don't know." She called my older sister, and she showed up with sage and holy water.
Mm-hmm.
And my older brother, Boise, and when she showed up, she started saging and blessing the house, splashing holy water all over the place. And my brother Boise, and it's wintertime, he's like, "Mosey, let's go check outside." I'm like, "Okay, let's go." We went and looked on both sides of the trailer. Well, what we could tell from, because we didn't want to go, because it's just like a foot of snow between each trailer,
Mm-hmm.
all the way there. And there was no tracks in the snow, whatnot. There's no one goes in between the trailers. Just no tracks on both sides. And yeah, that was the second time I ever experienced something paranormal, man. It just freaked the hell out of me. It reminded me of something like out of the Poltergeist,
Yeah. Oh my God.
It was just slamming walls, both sides.
Yeah, that's pretty intense,
Yeah,
man.
that was it was pretty intense, man. I've encountered others. When I was a kid, you hear stuff of people saying, "You need to go to bed early, or you're gonna get like 3 knocks on your corner of your wall of each corner of your house." And it brought back memories hearing tales of that, and it just freaked me out, man.
I've always been interested in your guys' stories about the little people, because I know you guys have them up there too, just like we do.
Yeah,
have you ever heard any stories about those?
Man, you gotta talk to my Uncle Tim B, right? He's the whitest guy ever, man. He moved up here to Alaska from Wisconsin, right?
Uh-huh.
And he's of Polish descent.
Yeah.
Man, they called us 3, 4 o'clock in the morning one day. This is when I was a kid. I remember waking up because Tim started calling. The house phones turned on, and my mom's talking, saying, "Leave dry fish in the porch." for some reason, I don't know if they say little people are scared of dry fish or if that's a gift or something.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he was laying in bed, and he said that his dog, he had a little terrier, right? She's tiny,
Mm-hmm.
and it's bigger than a Yorkie though, a little bigger than a Yorkie, and she's freaking barking away. And Tim said he woke up and he saw clothing flying into the air, right, like getting tossed up from his drawer.
Uh-huh.
And he said when he looked down, he said he saw a little guy, had long hair, but he was bald though. You know, he had bald on top, but the hair around the ears and the back of the head was long. Like he is bald with long hair. Oh. And he said, looked at him, smiled, and turned around. And he said, when it ran out, it was so fast it was a blur.
Whoa.
Yeah. And this is a white guy. You know, I've never experienced it. I always hear about it, and then once I heard that, I was like, man, if a white guy seen it, it must be true.
Yeah, because they don't believe stuff like that in general. You know, a lot of them don't. But
yeah,
that is interesting to know that you know, a non-native said that that seen that.
yeah, it was, and then they called my mom, or dad, early in the morning and asked what to do, and even when I talked to my real mom, she said, yeah, leave dry fish out. They're scared of dry fish, which I don't get. I thought, if anything, you think that they saw it as a sign of like, oh, they left me out just for me, like an offering, so I'm going to leave them alone. You know, that's how I thought of it, but I don't know if they're scared of it or what.
You know, in our tribe, we actually have a society that's based on them. There's an old story where, well, this society's still alive today, but how it was formed, it's a kind of a long story, but the long story short goes like this. A boy was almost killed by his uncle, and those little people helped him. They healed his wounds, and they taught him some songs, and they showed him how to turn into a coyote. And they raced over to that battle, and those little people fought that battle. And our tribe, the Blackfeet, they were probably going to get beat that day, but those little people helped that boy, because all that boy wanted to do was be a warrior. And they helped him, but nobody could see him. And they kept getting, they killed all the enemy that day. Well, that bad uncle of his took credit for all that. And they all went back to the tribe. But those little people and that boy, they went back to the tribe too, and they waited on the outskirts of the encampment. And when the war party showed up, and they were all, you know, successful, and they took war trophies, war honors and everything, and that's when that boy went out, because that little person, that old man, that chief of those little people, he told him, now you go down there and tell them what really happened, and when you need proof, just sing that song. And so anyways, he went down and, oh no, this guy, my uncle, he tried to kill me. It wasn't his war medicine. He said it was those little people and me. We went down there, and they, he's crazy, don't listen to him. And an old man spoke up, says, no, what this boy says is a serious accusation. You know, we gotta listen to him. You know, what he's accusing you of, so we gotta hear him out. And so they made him be quiet, and they listened to him, and just then that boy starts singing that song, and those coyote come in, walking in between the legs of all of those people, and then before everybody's eyes, they all turned into little people. And that chief of those little people told him, yeah, what this boy says is true. And what's more, he fought harder than all of us even. What he did was he tied himself to a sabbathberry bush right there, and he fought. He couldn't leave the field of battle, and he fought harder than all of us. He says, because of this, we're going to make him an honorary chief of the little people, and we're also going to give you guys these gifts, this bundle. And if you do what we're going to teach you these songs, and if you take care of this bundle and you do this in the right way, your people will always be taken care of. And those are the gifts that they give them. That society is the Brave Dog Society, or Crazy Dog Society in our tribe. That's one of the societies we have, but it's still alive today. People still, they're members of it and stuff, you know, it's still there.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that's
cool that's still going to this day.
That whole act of tying yourself to a bush, that's what Blackfeet did a long time ago. They did that. After that, you know, they would tie themselves. Once there was a battle, geez, those enemy would just avoid those Blackfeet that tied themselves to bushes. Usually they didn't want nothing to do with them, and they'd get killed, you know. But yeah, that was a big war honor kind of thing to do.
See, anyway, my Yupik name is Uppa, and it means great warrior.
Mm-hmm.
I was adopted to my grandpa, and he wasn't raised by his dad, but you hear all these stories about him. He like you hear elders too sometimes say. They say to their kids, to people, go to bed. If you don't go to bed, Uppa Nukbuk's gonna come and get you.
Oh, uh-huh.
There's a few stories of him, of his vest that he had woven tight, and that arrows couldn't pass through it.
Yeah.
And there was other stories too that my dad told me when I was a kid that when he came back from Mount Nitchcomb from school, and he was like 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Came back to Bethel. Never met his dad before. He went down to the Wild Goose, which was the only bar in Bethel at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Where's Moses Jordan? I'm gonna kick his ass when I see him." And he just sat there and he got drunk all night. "Do you know Moses Jordan? I'm gonna kick his ass when I see him." That's what my dad was just telling me. He's saying that, and then he said, by the time that bar closed, the guy said, "Hey, you need a place to sleep. You're too intoxicated. You can stay at my house." The next day he woke up, he said, "I'm Moses Jordan. I'm your dad." And he told me that he had a bow made out of some kind of bone, a rib bone. Mm-hmm. It was a big one. I think he said it was whale bone out of a rib, or parts of a rib into it. And he said that the tension was so strong on it with the sinew, he couldn't even pull it himself,
Oh.
But his dad could pull it.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, that's crazy.
That's a good story, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's the funny thing is, when I went back to the tribe to work for my tribe as a natural resource director,
Mm-hmm.
an elder said, "Hey, you know your dad's dad?" And I said, "Yeah, Moses Jordan." He goes, "Yeah, his Yupik name?" I said, "Yep, Uppa Nukbuk." They said, there's stories that Uppa Nukbuk's going to come back and lead his people. And I was all like, whoa,
Yeah.
I was like, I was super pumped up.
Yeah.
And I was working there for a bit, but we ended up moving. After 6 months, I ended up moving down to Soldotna, Alaska.
And
So I really didn't get to lead my people.
But still, that's a really good story, man.
Yeah, to hear it from an old guy was pretty cool.
How about those,
So...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I have another one.
Yeah.
One more I could tell you, man. How, like back to earlier, how you said everyone that you were around was raised mostly Catholic?
Mm-hmm.
See, I was raised mostly like Christian, like Pentecostal and Moravian, like that style.
Uh-huh.
Just Christian. And most of everybody in the Tundra village surrounding Bethel is raised Russian Orthodox.
Oh, uh-huh.
So it's not really Catholic, mostly Russian. Well, there is some Catholics, but it's mostly Russian Orthodox. Everyone does Slavically every year, where they have these big feasts, people coming over and giving out candy following the star from the Russian Orthodox side.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, fall time though, it's September, and we didn't catch a moose. It had closed on the Kuskokwim for Unit 18, but it was open for Unit 18 remainder, which is towards the Yukon,
mm-hmm.
from the Kuskokwim River. So I had just bought a boat that year from my father-in-law with a 90 E-Tech, and I asked my brother, my real brother, oldest one too, said, "Hey, you want to go hunting, moose hunting?" He's like, "Sure." My brother, my wife's brother-in-law decided to come with us. And when we got there, anyway, we went way up. We went to Kasugluk, got more gas in Kasugluk. And while we were there, my brother got most of his gear. I had a really nice flat bottom boat with a nice motor, and I'm proud of him. Like, yeah, we're gonna bring everybody. And we started going up the Johnson, which is a little tributary that goes far up behind this village called Kalskag. Mm-hmm. But then, when you go up that tributary, it brings you 5 miles to the Yukon, right?
Yeah.
So you're inside Unit 18 remainder, you can hunt all cows that don't have calves with them.
Mm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
So as we're going up the Johnson, I said, ready, guys? Get ready. Get your guns ready. We're going to see a cow right behind this bend. And literally, as we come around the bend, there's a cow swimming across the bend, right?
Mm.
And we're getting ready to shoot it. But
Yeah.
there was a calf. I told everyone, I said, nah, don't shoot it. It has a calf. Don't worry, we'll catch one tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're going up the Johnson, we seen this one camp that was like all these camps are like pretty much close to the riverbank, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even this one that was next to the bluff that was further down from us, they were next to this bluff. They could have went up on top, but they stayed down next to the boat. And I thought it was strange, weird.
Yeah.
And I'm not Russian Orthodox, so I got to this bluff, and at the top of this bluff, there was 2 posts driven into the ground, like old spruce posts, like they were made out of a spruce tree.
Yeah.
You know, they weren't no graves or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pushed into the ground. And as we got up there, we're like, hey, this would be a perfect spot to put a tent. It's 10 by 10 pretty much. It's nice and flat where these 2 posts are at. So we started setting up my tent and we put it down. And, well, before that, we set up a tent right next to it. And I started picking up all the I thought it was trash. So there was a half-drunken beer. There was a pilot bread, which are crackers. We call them up here crackers.
Mm-hmm.
And a bunch of other different food, Spam, shells, lots of shells, a lot of different calibers of shells. I remember that. And what I did was, I thought it was trash, so I picked them all up and I threw them away, you know, in a trash bag. And threw everything away. And I said, my brother was, I was glassing, and my brother was sleeping on the tundra. Sleeping with my brother-in-law just laying there, both laying there, because we got up pretty early and we left that day. We made it all the way up there. And while I was sitting there glassing, no one was in the tent. I started setting up the tent and I set it up. I was like, man, these 2 posts would be great. Tie my tent to, you know, with the rain fly and all that. So it was really flat. I was surprised there was no those tundra heads, and they have like these long grass, and this spot had none of that, man.
Yeah.
None of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, man, let's set our tent up here. It's my tent, so they're asleep. I'm setting it up. And that night, we're sitting there, and I made us a cup of noodle. All of us, I made hot water. I'll have a cup of noodle. And man, it went from a beautiful day to ugly looking outside. I could see the jet stream right above us. So we're on top of this bluff, and when you look up, it looked like you could almost, you know, see the clouds like 100 feet up, and these ripples. You know, I never seen them like that before. The wind was blowing above the clouds. You could see ripples in it.
Yeah.
Like water almost.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sitting there, I'm like, man, this is gonna get bad. So I went inside the tent, and I'm sitting there as I'm eating my soup, my cup of noodles. All of a sudden, the ground goes, it shakes, you know, like starts shaking. And I'm like, man, did I just feel that? I don't want to say nothing to anybody. I don't want to sound like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say nothing. And I'm sitting there. I take a second bite, and all of a sudden I feel another even harder jolt. Just jolt. Like the ground just started rumbling, like shaking, and it went away. And I knew they felt it because my brother was like right away, Mosey, you feel that shake? I was like, yeah. Did you guys not feel the first one? And my brother-in-law, but my wife's brother-in-law, but I call him my brother-in-law too.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, he's like, what, you guys didn't feel the first one? I was like, I felt the first one. I just didn't want to say nothing to you guys because I thought you guys just, you know, didn't feel it, and that made me feel funny. And my brother's like, man, Mosey, what's this bump? What's this bump underneath me? And he gets up, he's freaking out. He starts feeling the bump with both his hands. He goes, oh, this feels oval like a face. And then he starts pushing, and he goes, oh, these feel like eyes, like eye sockets. And then he goes up, he goes, oh, it has a nose bridge. Moses, what the hell? I'm like, he's like, come over here and feel this. I'm like, I cussed. I was like, fuck, I'm not gonna go feel that. And it freaked me out.
Yeah.
And then Mike, the only one that's Russian Orthodox out of both of us, said, I don't know. He goes, they leave gifts at graves when they're coming up here for having successful hunts, and hopefully if you have a successful hunt, they leave gifts like shells. And Moses, you touched all of that.
Oh.
And man, then the wind hit us all of a sudden. Wham! A big wind, and like both of my poles in my tent on one side busted.
Yeah.
The wind hit us so hard it broke fiberglass tent poles. Never experienced that before. And it's 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. And me and my brother are freaking out. We're like, man, let's just move camp. So we moved. We got the boat all loaded up at like 2 o'clock in the morning. Pitch black out. Only had one headlight. And the only one that cuts the ground behind him when we get in the boat is Mike. He's a Russian Orthodox dude, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he knows the native traditions too. You cut the ground behind you, leave any bad spirits behind that want to follow you, can't follow you.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So we go 2 bends down the river. My brother said he's going to sleep in the boat. I guess he's freaking out. Me and Mike had these awesome sleeping bags that were waterproof, military style ones.
Mm-hmm.
That you could camp out with. It's like a 3-layer sleeping bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, so me and him set ours up inside the tent. The rain fly blew away. Half the tent is only up, and half the tent is collapsed. We woke up the next morning, and there's water, like where like above, almost to our knees, inside the tent.
Oh.
But we were dry with those sleeping bags, man. We stayed dry, which is crazy. Yeah, we packed up. We brought my brother back. As soon as I got back to Bethel in the boat harbor, man, it was rough out there too. Like the waves are huge. I called my wife to come pick me up, and she showed up half an hour late. I was flipping out, got in a big argument. I was like, F this, man, I'm going to sleep at a hotel. Went and got me a hotel, because we were just like on bad terms as soon as I got there, which is weird.
Yeah.
And I didn't sleep for 3 nights after that.
Wow.
Every time I lay my head down, I feel like someone was watching me. It wasn't close to me, but it felt like it was far.
Yeah.
Like 8 feet away from me, standing there watching me.
Mm-hmm.
And that Monday, I went to work, and I talked to an elder, too. I said, hey, we did this, and ever since then, I've been feeling like I'm being watched, and I don't know what to do. He says, you need to go feed the tundra. You need to go, you disturb these spirits. I told him the whole thing, and he goes, you disturb spirits, and you need to go feed the tundra and point them towards home. He said, the gifts that you put into the tundra, the food, will be their food, spiritual food for their journey back. They followed you, and the only one that didn't have trouble was the guy that cut the ground behind him.
Whoa.
That was Mike. Yeah. My brother called me up and said, Mosey, I can't sleep. I had a dream about the beautifulest woman, and she ended up being an evil woman at the end. And I kept hearing this fly buzzing me, though. Every night I'd fall asleep and have bad dreams. And I told him what I did. I told him I saged myself. I had gotten sage from a family friend, and I went to the tundra and I saged myself with a white sage, and then I fed the tundra and told the spirits, talking to them like they were there, and told them which way is home.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was able to sleep after
that. Damn.
It's crazy, man. Even the incense that the Indians downstate use,
Yeah.
There's some holy, powerful meaning in it.
Yeah, because we use sage too, but we use it in a little different ways. Like the old traditional way, they use sage. They don't really burn it. They'll rub off with it. They'll use it to kind of rub off. But there's other ways too, and our tribe does it. I mean, I grew up burning sage too, but we just believe you can't burn it at night, because if you burn it at night, it'll actually call bad in. You can burn it at night, but just not by itself. You got to put sweetgrass, cedar, sweet pine, some tobacco, some other kind of smudge on top of it. But
see, I started learning more about my traditions too and my people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the old guy told me to use was ayukti. Go out there and use Labrador tea. He said our people use we smudge with Labrador tea. I'm like, okay. And it smells good too, you know. It has a good smell like sage. It smells like a church when you burn it.
Yeah, see, my family, they were like Catholics and stuff. Well, my grandpa, he was a crazy dog singer. He sang in those societies, but, you know, they were all raised like that, my grandpa and them. And my aunt, she was really big into our traditional ways. She didn't follow the church at all, and she always brought me around ceremonies. You know, I grew up around these, well, I guess we could say medicine man. I was always around him, and he was showing us. I'd sweat with him and help him at his Sundance, you know, things like that. But not all the time. I just, you know, anyways, I was around him a lot, and he's the one that sent me into the military. I went into Marines first, and he gave me protection before I went in there, and you know, so I followed our traditional way more because I don't really know a lot about the Bible, or, you know, I know things about it, but I've never used, you know, prayed like that, except for when I was a little kid and I didn't know what I was doing. But anyways, I started learning our other ways at a young age, about, you know, 2nd and 3rd grade. So I've always followed that. I didn't really know too much about the church, you know, the prayers. I can't recite any of those prayers. I might be able to recite that Lord's Prayer, you know, but
the Lord's Prayer. I don't really like it. It's just like that because my mom, in our porch, she had this big rug type thing, right? Like a rug. Mm-hmm. But it had the Our Father prayer on it. It was hanging on the wall like a tapestry, or where you call them. I don't know what you call them. It looked like a rug.
Yeah.
It said, Our Father who art in heaven.
A tapestry.
And that same thing. The same thing as that guy, that elder. I was talking to him about it. I started getting questions, and I went and talked to him again later on. I said, "Hey, who's Tumya? Who is this guy that our people used to pray to?" He said, Tumya kind of means like whose spirit is just there. He who's just there. And then he goes, that means we could have been praying to anybody. And he was telling me, he's like, you know, it could have been a bad spirit. We don't know. He was saying, and he's like, but he said he converted to Christian. But he told me he's the one that told me that same way, you know, to go and feed the tundra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we do things like that too. Feed those spirits. And
that's the 3rd time I ever experienced anything personally. You know, I hear stories from other people, like my wife too. She said, you know what's funny about that trailer you used to live in? One day I came over to your house and I could hear like old 30s music playing, but there's no radio in your house going, and I could hear it coming from the wall. I stuck my ear against the wall, and I could just hear the music playing on the wall. So I was like, what?
Whoa.
Yeah, she said it sounded old.
Yeah.
Old music playing on the walls.
Hey, this is a little off subject, but do you know a guy named Sean Peter that lives in Bethel?
Sean Peter? Yeah, I know Sean Peter. He's from Kotlik.
I served with him in the army. Yeah.
Oh, nice, man. He used to date my cousin, Naya.
Is that right?
I know who you're talking about. He's a half-breed native. He looks like he could be a light-skinned native, almost like he's a white man. Yeah, yep.
And I know him. We served with another guy, too, named Daniel Elaine. He was there with us, too. Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. Yeah, I don't, Daniel Elaine, not sure, but I know Sean because he used to date my cousin.
Yeah, well, if you ever see him...
He had a baby with his, yeah.
Tell him I said hi if you ever see him.
Rob, what you say? Rob said hi?
Yeah, Rod Williamson. He'll know who I am from.
Rob, okay.
Yeah, the 1st Battalion, 17th Infantry Regiment out of Fort Wainwright. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, he'll know who I am.
Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions. What do you think that was? Let's go back to that shadow people when it was breathing in your mom's face. Was it the same entity that you seen?
Man, the way I think, man, when I watched that one movie, what is that movie with Christian Slater, where he's walking and he's Satan himself, right? He's walking, and he has his little pet demon with him that stands there and he growls. He looks like a regular person, but he growls like a lion.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. As soon as I woke up, because man, that movie was like from the '90s, and when I told him, I said, man, I seen a dark shadow person. He goes, man, it was growing in my face. I put two together. I was like, man, Satan and his demon was here in their house last night. You know?
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Yeah. So it was two separate
movie,
things then, huh? That were.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Two separate things. One bothering her while he was upstairs watching me talk, or maybe coming to introduce himself to me. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Because it was after I, kind of renounced God and telling God he was fake.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And, I don't know.
Hey, that's pretty crazy. Okay, so back to the to that little camp you guys made, your little hunting camp there. What did it feel like an earthquake that was shaking under you guys, or did it feel like the ground was lifting, like breathing or something? What was that?
Man, the ground was shuddering, man. It was like a shudder, like say you got to chill and you feel and you start shaking.
Yeah.
Or say your adrenaline's going a little bit, and you feel that. Oh, the funny thing is, before that, we saw an old guzzlet, right?
Huh.
So that kind of made sense too now. Guzzlet is old like men's house.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Uh-huh.
So anyway, we were walking back there. I saw this hill, and this hill had 3 openings into it, and then it had an opening up top for like the smoke. But I couldn't get to it because there was a creek in front of us. I was like, man, I want to go see that. And you hear about like 3 openings and all that, and you think about little people. So I left tobacco. I left tobacco over there as we're
Yeah.
let's have a successful hunt, man.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man.
My dad's relative, he always used to take him in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was he'd always stay homeless in Bethel every time they got to Bethel. And he was in and out of Scammon Bay, this village. And he'd go stay in Bethel, and every time my dad would see him, staying at the main store, looking like he's been drinking,
Mm-hmm.
he'd take him in all the time. His name was George. I forgot his last name, but I always knew him as my Uncle George.
Yeah.
Even to this day, when I see him in Bethel, I say, "Hey, Uncle George," and he says hi to me. I said, "Tell me some scary stories," because I like listening to that. And he'd go off on different stories, or he'd tell me try and tell me stories about women too. And my mom would always tell me shit. One of those cool uncles. Yeah, I thought he was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But he was what was he doing? Anyway, he said he went moose hunting to this river called they call it Black River,
Mm-hmm.
which is close to the Yukon. And he said while he was sitting there, he said there's camps up there, there's cabins that people that use if they need to.
Mm-hmm.
And he said that it was getting late out, the sun was starting to go down, and he's outside the cabin, and he said he saw this boat, he heard a boat coming up the river. He went out, he said he saw it. He said the boat passed him, they're waving at him, he waved at them back. And he said when he turned around and went into he goes, man, there's something funny about that boat. He goes, it was an all-wooden boat, like they used to make a long time ago.
Yeah.
He said the motor wasn't no regular Johnson motor. He said it was one of those old motors, the loud, all-metal motor with a metal cowling.
Yeah.
Then he's like, man, it all just came to him. He said, man, all the people were dressed traditional with no, with furs, with not regular clothes. They're all dressed in fur.
Yeah.
For parkas and stuff coming up with an old wooden boat, like he was in a time lapse or something.
Yeah, I already seen
He said he went into the camp. He said later that night the doors and everything started shaking. He said like something was trying to come in, and he said he grabbed the Bible and he threw the Bible at the door and it stopped. He said there's a Bible in there. So that's what he told me when I was a kid growing up. I always thought that was creepy.
Wow, yeah. You used to see those old people, those old spirits still out there or something, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah, and my man, see, man, there's so many stories from you got to talk to my older brother, too. When my anyway, my older brother and my second oldest brother, they were at Old Chivak, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Old Chivak is the old village before they moved on to the bluff to the hill above high water, because it always used to flood.
Mm-hmm.
The only building standing there is the Catholic church, right?
I see. Yeah.
And behind the church, there's these graves where they buried the people above the ground in boxes.
Oh. Uh-huh.
And one day, I guess Francis is kicking a skull around with this other girl that's named Francis too.
Oh.
And he kicked it into the river. And he said, my dad said later that night, my brother told on him, said, hey, Francis was playing with the skull and kicked in the river. My dad's like, why do you do that? And nanooked him. Everyone went to bed. That girl got nanooked too. She went to bed. They're playing, because they were playing with a human skull and kicked in the river. And later that night, my mom and my real mom told me that she got so scared she got in the fetal position and covered up because there was two people talking in Yupik, which is a different dialect of Yupik.
Yeah.
And the Yupik people they're like us, they're similar, they just talk differently, different dialect. Like we say Salunup, where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
But from my dad's side they say Jalunup, which is the same thing for salted fish, so they say it with a ja and not a sa.
Mm-hmm.
They're just the similarity, a little different. And they said that two people were talking and asking in Yupik. Well, in my language, it'd be like more like "Muqsikhto," I'm thirsty.
Mm.
But in their language, it's something different. And said, I'm thirsty. My dad put water outside of the tent. I said, here's water, and he left it there. And to this day, every time my dad goes camping, he leaves water outside of the tent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And supposedly it's supposed to leave bad spirits outside of your tent too. When you put water outside, I guess.
Jeez, my aunt
Like a
used to
gallon
do
of water, I
something-
guess.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, my aunt used to do something similar when she was getting haunted. She was a matron at Chamao Indian School. That's where I went. I went to Chamao Indian School. I really appreciate you coming
Yeah.
on. It's an honor to listen to your stories and to hear you share some of the things that you know about your culture. I really
And it's
appreciate
similar
it.
too to other people, you know.
Yeah.
Other people that had like the same experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the funny thing is, you know, everyone said it was like the Shadow Man. Oh, he had a hat. Like even you told me your experience. He had a hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I always hear people say that they were able to move or weren't able to move. You know, I was able to move, uncover myself, and when I looked at him, you know how you see those signs, what floor signs
Yeah.
of a person? It shows a person.
Yeah.
It was exact, like almost exact shape of that, but as tall as me, and the head was a circle. You know, like that slippery sign looking thing. And it was
Weird.
dark.
Yeah.
So black, you know, like it was the galaxy right there inhaling all the light, you know.
Wow. Yeah.
Always makes me wonder, like what if he came to talk to me and I talked to him, you know? That's right.
Ooh, yeah, I don't
If
know
I
if
wasn't
I'd do
scared
that.
enough to communicate with him, I wonder what would have happened.
I don't know, man. I don't think anything good, though. I would have been scared to do that. Jeez.
And then you hear of like where I'm from in Bethel too. You hear of all these like possessions that happen with intoxicated individuals.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like man, my grandma mom was at this one house in Slough,
Mm-hmm.
and this lady had been drinking, and she touched the table, like she touched the with her pointer. She touched the coffee table.
Yeah.
And when she touched it with her pointer, it flew like 6 feet towards the other direction, you know.
Oh.
And then she was getting ready to touch her own little toddler son. Right before she touched her, everyone grabbed her and stopped her.
Oh.
So, and they had to get the deacon over there and someone to come over and help exercise her.
So is there a
So
lot
that was
of...
another alcohol and field happening. Yeah, like they say, you know, spirits in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
It's true, man.
Yeah, we call them alcohol
You
spirits.
know.
Yeah.
You know, they become other people. Especially when people black out, they go and do things that they normally wouldn't do.
Yeah. Hmm.
Maybe that spirit, you know?
I think so. You know, they can influence you. I think so, man. You know, I've had experiences with that, those alcohol spirits, and they can definitely, well, trick you, make you think people are against you, and they're not. But you're too inebriated to know the difference, you know? Like, we could sit there in a bar and you'd be visiting with people. You won't even know, but that person that you're visiting with is one of them, those alcohol spirits, because they look real. You know, to you.
Mm-hmm.
Other people might not be able to see them, but you see them sitting right there talking to them. Again, thanks to Moses Jordan. I appreciate him coming on. I have another guest that came from Alaska that she already shared part 1 of her stories, and she's going to share more. Her name is Carrie. So I have another person from Alaska that contacted me, and we're in the works of scheduling something to get her stories recorded as well. I have another person that recently contacted me from Alaska, wants to share as well. I guess his whole family's got a lot of stories, so it's going to be interesting. Our Alaskan brothers and sisters that are going to be sharing with us. It's something different for us as Blackfeet, you know, to hear their stories, and I really appreciate them coming on and being willing to share with us. It's fun to do, and I love hearing all these stories. They're so interesting to me, you know. There's more people I know from just my family alone that are going to be coming on too. My cousin Philip Manyhides, he'll be sharing stories with us as well. I'm trying to get one of my really good friends to come on, and he's one of these days we'll get him on. He's got a ton of stories, and you know, from the Blackfeet tribe here. And so if there's any more of you out there, you know, you Crow, any tribe, Grove on it, I don't care what tribe it is, we just want to hear the indigenous stories. Sioux, Seminole, don't matter. I'd like to hear your stories. It'd be good to get more of us in here and keep this podcast growing. And thanks to all you listeners and everybody that supports the show. Thank you, patrons, as always. You guys are, you know, you got a really special place in my heart because you help me grow this thing from a financial standpoint. You know, it really goes a long way. Each patron, I really thank you all. Well, till next time.